Cornish, and we're live. You know, the little ticker will go down, and if you see something you want to talk about it when you see it, then talk about it. You know, and it's fun. And yeah, I'm here with First Sergeant retired Michael Cornish. Everybody, look at the stuff behind him, and he's looking good, man. Woo!
My wife calls it the museum.
Yeah, right. The museum. I used to have a I love me wall, I love me room, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah, I put it all down here, but the kids have taken over the room down here. So.
Y'all come on in. We don't bite. We're hanging out here with the man, Superman. Man, you got a famous pose. I was trying to practice, man. I couldn't figure it out, dude. I couldn't figure it out.
It was definitely contagious. I guess some people do it. And every time I was doing any type of a Italian run, or well, actually, anytime a camera was in front of me, I was going to do it. So.
Oh, I love it. Isn't that great, man? I love your boldness, right? I love your I'm here, I'm present, I'm a leader, let's do it, you know. And you were always known for saying the things that nobody else would say, you know. And it was just like, well, that's Cornish, is what it is, you know. And but you did it in so we all had buddies that we were like, oh, you shouldn't have said that, right? Oh, man. But you were at the forefront of leading the way, man, of leading the charge, of being of an engaged, exciting leader that was out there having fun. And that was a great thing, man. And it's so great to hang out with you, man.
Yeah, well, that was my whole thing. Be fun, be stern, but I'm not trying to be the a-hole asshole walking around. We cuss on here or no?
Hey, it's okay. So great. Let's talk about it. I need to make some announcements. Can I do that? Yeah. So let's do that. All right. So everybody that's out there, everybody that's out there, Joe's surgery went well. His back's doing good. We've already got videos of him walking around, and so thanks for your prayers. We really appreciate that so much. And then look, the 82nd Airborne Division, 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment reunion is August 4th through the 7th in Nashville. My little band, Boat Ramp Bound, is going to be playing. Troy and Amanda's going to be there. My little sweetheart Tina's coming with me. We need soloists that night to play and sing with us. And we're going to do a karaoke and Coors Light night. I will bring 24 Coors Light. The first 24 people there will get one free. I'll hand it to you. And we're looking forward to hanging out at the reunion. That's the 5th of August, Friday night, there in Nashville. We got some things that are crazy happening. And if you really want to get in the know, get on our Discord. All right? Somebody that's on here that's on the Discord, put a link in the thing on how we get to Discord, if you don't mind. This is I don't even know how to say it. There's a TV show coming. We are fixing to do a real TV show. It's kind of like this, but different than this. I can't say much more about it than that, but we're about to do a TV show, like no crapola. And it's, we're going to start with Army Air Defense, and it's really cool. All right. Merchandise. Where's that link? Let me get to the link. Go there if you want to get that stuff. That helps Joe and I and what we're doing, right? The coins came in, they were crap. Joe was like, no, no, we're not doing these coins. So he called the coin people. The coin people say, well, they're sorry, they're going to fix it. So, there you go. The boxes are here. We have the boxes. They made it from Ukraine. So we're happy about that. So the boxes, the coins were substandard. He said, these are nice coins. Joe said they were flimsy and too thin. But the boxes are in great shape. They're there. And thanks, Mikhail, over in Kyiv. Woo, I love you, man. Keep churning it out for us, man. And I appreciate it. He's on Etsy, My Coaster Buddy. My Coaster Buddy on Etsy. Hey, Stephen Archer, dude, I love you, man. Thanks for coming and hanging out. A couple things. I told you about a TV show that was a movie too that we're thinking about. Okay. If y'all haven't seen the interview that we did with Jeff Finlayson, Master Sergeant retired Jeff Finlayson, you got to go watch it. He is the hero here, right? Look, of the folks that were in that space, I'm going to tell you, he could be a healer, he could be a hero. I'm telling you, he's my hero. He's my hero. This is a war crime book. There's no good news in this book. None. All right. But it's one of the best military books I've ever read. I listened to it on Audible is what I did. Let's see what else. Oh, I've got a book coming out. Okay. It's a book of military short stories. It's called Entangled at 4000. I tell the story where me and PFC friend got entangled in a parachute like 88 in Holland drop zone. And then there's also other stories in there. So Mom's finishing editing up tonight. Y'all say hi to Mom. Y'all, clap for her and get her to finish editing so we can get that out. And then finally, where to watch. A couple things are happening. I got to change some things. I'm now streaming on Facebook on my personal page. I need you to go to Marshall in the Middle and make sure you like and subscribe to the Facebook Marshall in the Middle thing, because we're going to have to start streaming from there. And it has to do with the chat. So I got to start streaming from Marshall in the Middle, not from my personal account. And then we're also on Twitch and on Twitter. Twitch and Twitter and YouTube. Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. All that right now. And on our website, formerforce.com. So go to Discord if you want to join in on the stuff about the Black Hearts that we got going on and about the TV show that we're working on. I'm stoked. I am over the top, blown away. Chris Lane, I love you, man. Thanks for subscribing. It is cool to be here, dude. We're here with freaking Superman, dude. So let me tell you, so Mike's in the background. He can see me. Hey, Mike, but nobody else can see him. Nobody else can hear him. But look, this guy is, I don't even know. If you took Joe Stout, Buzz Lightyear, he was that character, and you took this guy, I just don't even know what character he is other than like Superman. He's just so awesome. Michael Cornish, everybody. Y'all clap. Hey, welcome Michael to the show, Let's see how we do this. There we go. Yay. Hold on. I got, hold on. Here we go.
Please.
Oh, hold on. There's a guy in the back. Oh, yeah, that's it. He loves you. Well, hey, man, thanks for hanging out, dude. Thanks for hanging out.
Nah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate that.
Oh, my gosh. So where are you from?
I'm originally from Michigan, Lawton, Michigan, very small town in Michigan. So I left right after high school. Graduated in June and started basic training in July, 94. 1994.
Man, you came in like in the golden time to get promoted and to go through. Oh no, really? That's interesting. I can't wait to hear your story. Yeah. I can't wait to hear your story. So tell me. So we're going to play your slideshow a little bit later. Tell me about about young Mike. What was young Mike like?
Quiet, pretty shy. I played sports. I wouldn't say I was a great athlete. I was athletic, So I was from a very small town. So I graduated 44 in my senior class. So basically we were like, we could play whatever sport we wanted at the time. So I played, football, basketball, baseball, ran track sometimes. Not that fast, but so I stuck with baseball. But played football as a quarterback, basically because they didn't have too many options. My junior, senior year, we were basically Ironman football. There was only 13 of us on the team. So you know, I had to play defense, and the only thing I didn't do was kickoff. Kickoff. I did kickoff return also, but offense, played quarterback, defense, defensive end, and then was on the kickoff return team. He's like, don't catch it. Just my biggest ploy was I was tough. So I didn't have the strongest arm or anything like that. I was pretty accurate, but yeah. So I mean, I enjoyed football the most. I was okay student. Wasn't really too serious about my grades or anything. I did okay, but it wasn't like I didn't get any scholarships or anything like that. I had one letter, and that was probably my coach asking a favor for Albion College to do a walk on to basically try walk on to see if you could play or whatever. I think that's only because they just saw how tough it was. Definitely wasn't because of we didn't have any. We only won one game like my senior year and win any my junior year, so it wasn't because of any type of performance issues. But I still got that letter. I think I kept that somewhere for sure, just because that's my only claim to fame. That was somewhat athletic when I was in high school.
Oh yeah, right. That's cool. That's cool. Look, I was on a winless team one time. I was the quarterback on a winless team when I was a kid, and I wonder sometimes if that didn't mess my psyche up a little bit. I was like, I was supposed to be leading the Stallions, and we just get downtrodden every week,
Well, and that's the thing. We got blown out like a couple times, but for the most part, we were kind of hanging in there for only having 13 guys. Sometimes if somebody's ineligible, 12 guys or 11. We hung in there. We still scored. It wasn't like we were getting blown out or anything like that. So we did all right. I mean, respectable, for what we had. But it was fun. Like I said, I was more interested in playing sports than I was doing anything else.
So when you were a kid, what did you dream of doing or being or
God, I don't even remember. That's one thing I had to take notes for this because I was like, man, my memory's kind of going to crap. Well, just because I was, what are we going to talk about or whatever. So I want to at least, get some key points so I don't kind of wander off and start rambling or whatever. Honestly, I don't remember what I wanted to be. I think I always, I guess maybe, shit, I don't even probably thought I was going to be a basketball player or something like that, or a football player until I realized I wasn't good. But I signed before, what is it, the early enlistment? What is it when I was 17?
Oh, yeah.
God, what is it called? Yeah,
delayed entry. Yeah.
Delayed entry. So I did do the delayed entry, when I was 17. So because I knew I was like, well, I'm not going to go, to college or whatever. I didn't want my parents to have to pay for any college or anything like that. So, I was like, well, just follow my dad's footsteps and join the Army. I have an older brother, John, older sister, Betsy, and a younger sister, Susan. So I'm the third, out of four. So, I was like, I'm not, I'm too far down the line. I don't want them to pay for college, so let me, go for the college money. And, I was so proud of my dad, that's another reason why I joined and all that. And he was so proud that I joined as well. So him and my mom, both him and my mom were just, ecstatic that, I was, in the military, very proud of me. So, well, all my family was. So.
Oh my gosh. I got to play your video right now. I got to play it. Yeah. So
tool.
Oh no, dude. You were
funny.
Awesome,
you were talking about how broad and how, all that, once you take the uniform off, I kind of get a little more mellow.
Oh yeah, I get. Yeah, totally. I understand that. Yeah. All right, there it is. Oh yeah, look at this.
Freedom, so fresh, so new. Freedom, it's all for you. All for you. Freedom, keep your ears to the ground. Talking about freedom, it's the best show in town. Best show in town. Freedom, well. Young, This is our time to rise back from the sand and claim our freedom. Talking about a freedom. Let yourself be free.
I give you freedom. Yes, it's right. Freedom. Start right now.
Talking about a freedom.
Get your freedom tonight.
Freedom.
I give you freedom. Yes, it's right.
Freedom. Let yourself be free.
Start right now.
Freedom.
Get your freedom tonight.
Freedom. Well.
Look at that. Freedom by Freedom. I get my music from Artlist.io. It is awesome music, obviously. And here we are with Superman.
The bow and arrow.
I don't know. How's that work, man? How's that work? Oh, look at that. Oh, hold on. I got to get some sound effects to go with that. Gonna do it one more time. Ah, that's it, dude. I'm here with First Sergeant Michael Cornish, dude. Such a good time, man. That video, those pictures, you have so many high quality, awesome pictures to look at on your, in your history in your life. Dude, that ain't a tenth of what you got. And it's so awesome, dude. I love the way you choose to display your success in your life. It's very awesome, and I applaud you for it. And I'm jealous, right? You get to hang out with Adams, right? Dude, I love him. I love that guy. He and I, we spent day and night together for an entire year, and I haven't talked to him since, not like one single time.
Well, you need to get him on here.
I know, and he, the deal. He's trying. Work about, the deal. The deal. He don't want to answer no questions. He didn't want to answer no question for me when I was his boss. He was like trying to, he's good.
The best quality about Royce is he wants you to be the best you can be, and he'll push you. And that's one thing he did for me is he always – I don't even want to get choked up about this. You want to start, certain things I was like, I'm not going to get choked up too much about this. But he really wanted what's best for me. And he would push me, regardless of, how I kind of, him about it. He'd be like, no, you need to do this. You can do this. Especially my civilian education and stuff like that. He really pushed me. He's really supportive of that. So, I mean, that's one thing I have to give it. He really expects the most out of yourself. If he can see that you can do better, he's going to say it.
So when did you meet Royce Adams?
Oh, I didn't meet him till Germany when I was in Germany.
What year?
2001.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I was with Adams. I guess it was 97, 98 in Korea.
So yeah. So right before you left, right before I got there. I got there in 99.
Oh, you came to Korea in 99.
Yeah.
Ah,
I just missed Royce too.
Oh, and you just missed him. Oh, wow, that's funny.
And he actually, I think he came to Hood. So he and I were actually maybe at Hood at the same time, or just missed each other, like really close. Like there's a little bit of an overlap where we just missed each other and all that. So because my first duty station was Fort Hood.
Okay.
So, I went to basic in, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So I went from Lawton, Michigan, growing up in Lawton, Michigan, went to Lawton, Oklahoma for basic training. So that was kind of funny doing that when I first, got the news. Yeah. Where are you going? I was like, well, God dang, I'm trying to see the world and I'm, experience life and, and I'm going from Lawton to Lawton. But kind of back to what you're saying about the pictures and all that. One of the things that I do appreciate about the Facebook is because I live away from home. I'm the only one out of my family that kind of left Michigan, Lawton. So a lot of that's just for, showing my family and friends back home. I got, two of my best friends are still back home, Justin Schwartz and Mike Steffen I grew up with. Like I said, small town. So we, pre-K all the way through. Well, Justin I met later in like sixth grade, but me and Mike Steffen, he lived 2 houses down from me. And I grew up, spent my whole, you know, academic career, sports career. He was my tight end when I played quarterback. So, my go-to when, and, whenever everybody else, everybody's missing, I was like, I always throw it to him, so he was bigger than me, taller than me. So, he'd catch it. So, but that's another thing. I was only 170 pounds when I joined the Army. So,
oh, that's
yeah,
great,
all that didn't
man.
come till later. I was skinny mini, so.
Really? So
Tall and rangy.
tall and range. So what made you start, lifting weights and getting big? I mean, you got to work at that, right? It doesn't just like, oh, look, oh, I got muscles.
that was my first divorce. So,
What?
or my only divorce. I'm married again, but like I have to quote Orlando Silva. Yeah, I got an oak leaf cluster on my wedding band, which is if you're in the military, that's kind of you're young, you make mistakes. So that was that.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Got an oak leaf cluster on your wedding band.
Yeah. So I only want one. I'm only gonna have one. So.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So what was it like being private Cornish? How did that go?
That went pretty good. Like I said, surprisingly, my I was a squad leader I had a leadership position right off the bat. I was a squad leader in basic training. And then I was a PG in AIT, but in basic training, everybody gets in there. I don't even remember how I got it. Like I said, that's so long ago, for God's sake. But I just, remember I was a squad leader. But I was, disciplined. I was, so as far as like my dad, he didn't really prep me too much. He just kind of, let me know as far as discipline and stuff like that. Growing up, he was, very, disciplined on me growing up. And he and I butted heads when I was younger. Of course, later on in life, was when we, bonded so well and all that. But just as far as the discipline part, I didn't realize when you dropped it for push-ups, you didn't have to do every one. So, just up, down, up, down. I'm trying to keep up, and if people, hey, you can't smoke a quitter, but I didn't have that mentality. So I'm just sitting there trying to do every push-up I could. And, I think that made me start, getting in better shape and this, that, or whatever. I wasn't out of shape, like I said, I was only 170 pounds. I was skinny, but I could run okay. I could do push-ups, sit-ups. I was, did good on the PT test. But when we got picked for our competition stuff, whenever it's like, just a couple guys from the platoon order, it was always me, Corey. I'm trying to remember these guys' names. Corey Dunlop. I can't remember like some of the other guys and all that, but we were like the 4 guys or whatever. They'd pick out of your platoon to represent the platoon to compete and all that. So
it's fun to be, part of the chosen crew, right? It's fun to be, picked as a platoon guide or a squad leader and to be the, to do it, to make it happen. Did you find a time where you were, where you found like you were afraid of not making it?
I'm terrified of heights. I was, terrified of heights, especially, when I first came in. Not making it when we were doing the Jacob's ladder. Man, I was so scared. Gary P. I was so scared of climbing up the Jacob's ladder. And I remember the drill sergeant, DeLuna, he was the senior drill sergeant, or platoon sergeant, whatever it was at the time. I'm climbing up, and thank God I'm tall where I don't have to like jump up to the next ladder. But, when I got to the top, I was terrified to get my leg over. And he's like, just, look at me, keep me, look at my eyes. You can do it. And I'm just, slowly did it. And you got down. I was like, whoo, I got down. And they were like, go again, because they saw how scared I was. So go again. I did it like 3 or 4 times. And that's where I kind of realized my whole thing for me is confidence. Once I feel secure and safe, I'm okay. So that kind of started dissolving some of that, fear a little bit. But when you mentioned not going to make it, and here's my memory playing in, so that's tell you how much of an effect it had on me. Drill Sergeant Tidwell, we had one competition, and I was on. I was doing the rope, the rope climb, sliding across the river or whatever. So it's a relay. And I came up and we had a big lead because Corey was super fast. I think he was first, something like that. And I was second or whatever. And they closed the gap on the lead. I was still ahead, but they closed the gap. And after we won, he came up to me and he's like, "We almost lost because of you." I was like, and I started, this is like probably halfway through it. I swear to God, I'm crying because I felt so like I disappointed them so much. And I had tears in my eyes. I felt so bad. But there were a guy, God, I can't remember his name. There's a guy in the platoon. I can't remember his name was. But he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, don't worry about it, Cornish. He goes, F that. You did good. We still won this, whatever." But that was me caring, about one, doing well in the competition, but I didn't want to disappoint anybody. Just being the weakest link or whatever on there.
Right.
And I was still ahead. I just, they closed the gap. That's what makes it even worse. Now I look back, I'm like, what the heck, but yeah, I remember seriously being that sensitive to where I was like, really upset about it. So,
hey, look, I was bred to be a winner. I was bred. Now, I didn't enter competitions that I knew I was going to lose. I entered the ones that I knew had a good chance of winning, especially individual sports. Team sports, you do it. You try your hardest. You become that's a winner when you're in a team sport. Were you a better team sport guy or an individual sport guy?
I did all team sports. I wish I would have did wrestling or something like that, but I didn't. I always did like the football, basketball. Like I said, growing up in Michigan, it's December, and I remember being at, like I said, Mike Stephan, my best friend, he had a outdoor basketball court with concrete. We spent all morning and all day scraping the snow and ice off that just to play 2 games in the middle of winter. It's just because, that's what we want to do back then. You just go outside and play. We didn't have, all the, the games and stuff like that. We were outside all the time playing tag or, whatever, But yeah, playing basketball.
What are your hobbies now?
Well, I still work out, bow hunting is like my big thing right now, hunting. That's probably my biggest default right now. So, trying to make sure I don't do that too much, taken away from my wife. She had to kind of hold me down a little bit there for a while. Cause once I got out, and I had like more time to do it, I was, kind of go as much as I could. And she's like, "Hey, you're going, too much. Your family's here and you can't be spending all day out there." So it's like, even now I'm planning, I got a hunt in Colorado. I'm doing my first do-it-yourself elk hunt with a buddy that lives here in Colorado. So we're gonna drive to Colorado, in beginning of the season, September, and do hunt for a week, and come back, bow hunt, do it yourself, hike, camping out there and all that. And it's funny because he keeps like telling me, he's like, "You gotta get in shape and get ready and hike and all that." I was like, "Man, I still got some muscle memory on there. I'm used to hiking because I had to, so it'd take me just a little bit. I'll get back in there."
I gotta laugh at this. Look at what Gary said.
You forgot go drinking.
Oh my gosh! So what? Remind people, what's it like to do a 12-mile road march for Mike Cornish? Right? I hate them. I despise them.
Naturally good at them. I tell you, the first time I lost was, Quintus is still in. Quintus Caldwell, Sergeant Major. He's the first one to beat me. It was more, but that was a team though too. So that was in Germany during a competition, and I remember talking smack. I was like, "Man, you ain't gonna beat me." I was like, "Cause I'm a T at road march, and I don't care how much weight you put on there. I'm a freaking mule." But my gunner was holding, kind of holding me back. He couldn't keep up, and Q won that one. But that's the first time I lost. But I remember arguing with my gunner, because I could see Q getting further and further, ahead of us, and Gunner's trying to keep up, but he just, he couldn't do it. And he's like, "You're killing my motivation, Sergeant." And I was like, "You're killing my motivation," So and I'm competitive, so I'm trying to win and all that. But hey, I think I still got the top gun trophies back there. I won the total competition, but he beat me on the road march. I was pretty hot about that.
So. Oh, that's great. So it's so interesting about those like competitions and the desire to win and be first and best, right? Adams was part of the team where we won the best squad and all that stuff in Korea and shot all the missiles, and it was awesome. Success is catching, right?
He's still salty because he came in second place for that competition because of a safety fault from his gunner. He left a clacker down there for the Claymore. Otherwise, I think they would have won. But he's still salty about that one.
Yeah, well, Herndon and I won first, and him and Mills got second.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was but we trained as a team. He wanted to beat me, and he thought he was going to beat me. He really did.
He's super competitive.
Yeah. But we didn't miss any. Herndon and I didn't miss anything. He didn't miss anything, and they did. And I'll never forget Herndon. So Herndon and I. So I had never been on an Avenger until I'm suddenly a staff sergeant and a squad leader. So I had to learn the Avenger like everybody else. So Herndon and I were a team, and then Mills and Adams were a team, right? And they were both like equal, like PFCs. And Adams said, I'll be the team leader, and Mills like, okay. And they roomed together, and they watched Grumpy Old Men every morning, a movie together, and they will come to chow or watch, after watching that, and we all did PT together. I was their squad leader, so it was me and Herndon and Adams and Mills for like a year together. They gave me a plaque, called me Bobby Do Right on the plaque, and it was just a great time, man. This was wonderful, wonderful time.
See, Hewitt reminded me. I did when I was squad leader. I had the APG. He said the basic training headbutt. I didn't like my APG, and he, whatever reason, he was always trying to outdo me or whatever, and he was like staring at me. Everybody's attention. I think it's towards the end of it. I'm like, what are you staring at? And he's just staring at me, trying to intimidate me. So I just walked up and just headbutted shit out of him. He stopped staring at me. So But,
oh wow! So I mean, what? I mean, did some brawl break out, or did you get Article 15 or anything? You just headbutted him and just went on.
They put a knot on his eyebrow, and that was it. So,
there you go. There you go. Yep. I guess that shut him up, huh?
Yeah, sure did, yeah.
Hey, well, have you ever been in a situation where you were, scared of your life, or you've been attacked, or somebody wanted to hit you?
Oh yeah. Lots of times. I mean, I remember being, even personal and professional. I mean, even personal, being in the clubs in Fort Hood. So going when I was in Fort Hood, first duty station, or whatever. Like I said, I'm from a small town. I didn't, do anything, or I was not popular. I didn't have any girlfriends or anything like that. So I joined the Army and, get to my first duty station. And, I'm starting hanging around with a bunch of, people that are very outgoing, going to the club and all that side. And, I like R&B music and rap. So I start hanging out with, guys going to the clubs and stuff like that. So, I go to the club, and I go to like a predominantly, black club. And it's like maybe three white guys, the bartender, me, and maybe another guy or whatever. So, a lot of times, sometimes I'd be walking by, somebody just, punch me inside the head, and I don't know who it is. So, I turn around, when I'm, hey, who did that? And club that were shoulder to shoulder and all that. So, a lot of times, I was like kind of, scared like that or whatever, but I was always, try to go, deep with some friends and all that. But if they're, gone or whatever, I'm like, I'm not, trying to start any trouble in here or whatever. But there's a couple times like that. And then, Iraq and stuff like that, but a couple times, just like everybody else, indirect fire and stuff like that, small arms or whatever. But as far as like personal like that, some stuff like that. Maybe when I was down in Dallas one time, I was at a basketball court and somebody got mad and started shooting at the basketball court, and I'm just hiding in one of those cement things or whatever, just like, hey, what's going on, so. That's when I was in Fort Hood. I used to go to Dallas like a lot, with some friends and all that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What was it like becoming a sergeant? Did you take that responsibility well?
I did. So kind of going back to, I think, the conversation we started with, where you're saying, oh, you came in the prime time. I got the slowest promotion for every rank.
Oh, wow.
26 months to make specialist. So I didn't make specialist. I was 26 months. But the thing about it was pretty much every time, I did make rank. As soon as I was eligible to go to the board to do something, whatever, I would get promoted bull. But then I'd sit in that spot for, like I said, I was in the Army almost 5 years before I made sergeant. So, I was, specialist at 26 months. Went to PLDC in the board as soon as I could, and they put corporal on me as a, made me a team chief because I came into 16 stupid. So I had that first, and when we were at Fort Hood, I came in at the Second Armored Division, was still around, so we had the patch, over our heart, Patton Zone, so that was kind of cool to do that. Then we switched over to 144, and then later on I got the Avenger, so I had to, get cross trained on the Avenger because I was a manpads guy, doing all that stuff for about halfway, through my first, 2 years in the Army, 3 years in the Army, and then we switched over to the Avenger, but. Like I said, I didn't make sergeant until like right before I went to Korea, which was good because I had been in Fort Hood for over 4 years, or 94. So I left in 99, so almost 5 years. Because I reenlisted when I was in Hood after my first, enlistment of 4 years or 3 years or whatever it was. And then I got on assignment to Korea, and I made sergeant like maybe a couple months before I left, which is to me kind of good because then I left, went to new duty station, and I'm a sergeant now. I wasn't private specialist, Cornish or whatever. So I took that very seriously, but I was already performing as a sergeant. I was a, corporal team chief, doing all that stuff. And I got to Korea, and I wasn't a squad leader in Korea. I was EVI sergeant team chief, but it's like I said, I was already kind of just waiting to make the points, which took so long. Like I said, I was probably promoted for 2 years or whatever before I made it. And then of course I went from Delta Battery to Alpha Battery, which was the Bradley guys, the Romeos. So those guys get promoted as soon as they go to the board, they get promoted, and So I remember like PFCs when I was a corporal would make sergeant before me, and then of course those guys were like, "Hey, corporal, come here." I'm like, you were PFC, 6 months, whatever, talk to me like that, So. That caused a little problem too. If I started my little, me being a little bit more of who I am, more outspoken, like, you're not going to talk to me like that just because, I know how stupid you are. Just because you made sergeant doesn't mean you know what the hell you're doing. You're private 6 months ago, whatever it was. So that kind of started that. But
it's interesting, and I don't want to get off on a tangent, but it's interesting how we equate our rank with knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Many times you get promoted through a certain whatever, and it's like, because I have this rank on my collar, then you have to listen to me. I am smart. And many times, many people take it too far. Many people I remember being a first sergeant and having to choose people to go do courtesy patrol out in the Ville in Korea, and you couldn't. Some soldiers you couldn't put an armband on and say, "Go police your buddies." They'd all have them all hauled off to jail. All of them.
Yeah. Which is true. Like I said, and that was always my opinion as well. See, for me, I mean, we're jumping forward and back, but especially when I was a first sergeant, to me, you can groom a sergeant. E4 sergeant, I can groom you, I can teach you, and show you the difference between being a specialist and being a sergeant. Staff sergeant, you need to be performing at that level already. To me, just because you're eligible doesn't mean you should be a staff sergeant. Because in old Sarge here, first sergeant, just because if I put a rocker on you, you might be a platoon sergeant somewhere else. And if you're not already performing at that level, you're going to start rating people, rating NCOs, and you got one NCR under your belt. Then that everything goes downhill after that. To me, unless you're a fast tracker and you're high speed and you're just, and usually those are people that are older anyway that came in because they already had the maturity level and this, that, or whatever. But that was a big thing. People always thought I was hating or whatever. I'm not hating, but if you're not performing at that level, you're not ready. You should be performing at the next level already, and then you're promoted. Not, hey, hope I do well. It's just that I don't agree to that, and that's just my opinion. So.
I get it. Were you good in like the Army schools and stuff, like PLDC and BNOC and all that stuff? Do you enjoy that stuff?
Well, I'm competitive, so PLDC. So my claim to fame in PLDC was I didn't make the commandant's list or anything like that, but they needed someone to recite the NCO creed to the class. And I competed for that. I was like, I'll do it, and so I had to go against people that wanted to do it. And, I did it. I guess, I had the best voice or whatever. So when we graduated, it was in Fort Hood, it was in the theater. So it's just me standing up there on stage by myself, pitching, volleying to the class. No one is more professional. And then they repeat and all that. Even though I didn't have any other accolades, like I said, all I did was a creed. I got more coins than everybody else because there were other first sergeant or sergeant majors and all that. Just were really proud of how I did it. So I'm standing next to the the distinguished honor grad, and I got other dudes coming in. I'm like, hey, all right, that's cool. So that was that was my little claim to fame. So I did okay in PLDC. Like I said, I didn't get counted on this list. BNOC. Oh my God, my one issue with BNOC was he was going to say this too. He's on here watching. Because I was in Fort Stewart when I went to BNOC, so I'd gone from Hood to Korea to Stewart. So I went from Stewart to BNOC Fort Bliss, and while we're doing the land nav course, I forgot to adjust the declination diagram. So I was shooting my azimuth, whatever I was used to in Fort Stewart. So I was like, why am I not freaking getting anything? I'm good, because in 94 when we came in, now, backtracking again, being 16 stupid, and being a team chief as a specialist and all that, we're doing NDP sites in the middle of the night, with no GPS, no plugger, none of that. So you had to read a map, be able to read a map in a Humvee, find a night defensive position and go in there and, all that. So I was always pretty proud of my map reading skills and all that. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I was, I think I don't know if I failed the first time or I failed the practice. But I was just sitting on the bus, like, God, I'm a dud, what happened? And I'm talking to Hewitt, and it just like an epiphany. I'm sitting there, I'm like, I didn't do the declination diagram. I'm like, fucking stupid, So that was my BNOC. ANOC, I made commandant's list. Drill Sergeant Academy, I made commandant's list, but I barely made commandant's list because right up to the last day in drill sergeant school. So they pull me aside like a couple days before graduation, drill sergeant school, and they're like, you missed about 1%. There's, this other, I can't remember who she was, what her name was. She beat me by 1% academically. Everything else, you eat it, 1% academically. I was like, God damn it. So I'm sitting, so you got the distinguished, or the honor grads in the first two rows and everybody else. I'm in the third row, not in the first two rows with everybody else that made it, right? We had flag detail that night, practice day before. She missed flag detail. So that's a demerit. So I went from the third row to the second row, and I'm sitting there next to him. I'm like, man, it looks a little different up here, So I got,
you were secretly letting the air out of her tires the next day.
I didn't at all. I remember sitting looking at the watch. I'm like, oh man, hey, that's to be her, So, but.
Oh, amen. It's again, it's interesting how competitive we are, and we want to be winners at every turn, and we want the best for our soldiers also. Tell me about one of your soldiers. Brag about one of your soldiers for me for a minute.
Like when I was, oh man, well, when I was a team chief, Bonilla, I had him. He was he? I think he might have been my first gunner, maybe not. Or no, he wasn't my first gunner, but he's the one I remember the most. I did a couple guys before that, but Bonilla, he was like probably the one that was like just as competitive as me. He's real quiet, not as loud or whatever, thing like that. But he was a little stud. He learned everything. God, where was he from? Was he from El Paso, or Arizona or something like that? But real quiet, but like he took the time to study, learn, and try to keep up with my standard, what we should be, as a team chief, and doing our training and all that. Because back then you go to the field for 10 days, at least. It's not like you just go to the week, come in the weekends or whatever. We'd go to the field for a couple weeks at a time. No shower runs or anything like that. You're just out there, doing your thing. And that's another cool thing is being air defense back in the early late 90s is you can be a corporal with a PFC gunner, and hey, you got to go link up with this lieutenant in this armored, division or armored unit, and you're providing air defense for them. Okay, I drive up. Hey, is this, first cav, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, where's Lieutenant so-and-so? Hey, I'm your air defense guy, as a corporal, that's, just stuff like that kind of molded me. And, even, like I said, probably Sierras in general, just to have that ability to start working outside your unit to coexist with other other people. So
That's something about that 14 Sierra, 16 Sierra man pad crew member attitude that it's really hard to explain the adventure
Yeah.
of it. It's hard to explain. I mean, looking back on it, it's a 21, 22-year-old kid with an 18, 19-year-old kid next to him with a live action role play,
Yep.
costumes and everything.
Yep.
And it's just like, where are we going? And it's like,
Yep. Yep. It's middle of the night. Hey, here's where you're supposed to be at this time. Good luck.
it was crazy adventure times at
Yep.
JRTC and NTC and
Yep.
deployed.
Yep.
Oh gosh, right. There's just if you could script an adventure, you couldn't have scripted my life.
Yeah.
I have, I imagine you have. What's the coolest adventure that the Army was able to put you on? What did you do?
I was just talking to Gary about this the other day, Gary P. I was like, and I went to airborne school when I was a sergeant first class. So, and my first jump, not the tower and all that. Like I said, I kind of got over my fear of heights and all that. I want to do it. So, my first jump, I landed, and it's just me by myself or whatever, I'm hooking all that. And I was like, and out loud to myself, I'm like, this is a cool thing I've ever done in the Army. I was hooked right there, So that was the coolest thing I ever did. You're jumping out of aircraft, and I really wanted to be able to stay at Bragg, and retire out of Bragg, and I wanted to take over Echo Battery. And I'm still salty at Paris Williams for giving it to whatever snapperhead he gave it to before me, because Gary had it first, and I couldn't obviously I can't take it from Gary while he was there, but I was in Bravo Battery, which is Patriot Battery, but I wanted Echo Battery. I wanted to go over to Echo Battery. I wanted to be a jump master. I wanted to do all of that, but just didn't work out that way. And then I ended up going, getting picked to go to Utah, but that's another story. So,
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So tell me about my first unit in the Army was Bravo Battery, 3rd of the 4th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, the Bulls, Bravo Bulls.
Yeah.
Tell me about your Bravo Battery. Tell me about your time as a first sergeant at Bravo Battery.
Well, I had Seth Barrett first. So that's the first time I had a commander that was bigger than me. So I don't know if you know Lieutenant Colonel Seth Barrett. Still friends with him now. Yeah, I got invited to his change of command because he's here in DC. So I still I keep in touch with all my commanders really. But he was my first commander. But he's like a guru, Patriot guru. So he knows everything about Patriot, and I don't know anything about Patriot. So I'm just kind of along for the ride. But that was my first first sergeant, time as a first sergeant. So I kind of had a little taste of it before in 2007. I was doing like the forward 17 because Sergeant Major Clem put me in charge of like the 17 forward before they came to Bragg. So I was kind of quasi. I didn't really have anybody. I had a few people and all that. So I was first sergeant, but didn't have that many people. Wasn't really like battery or anything like that. But he's kind of grooming me for for that. So when I got Bravo, I had to lean on people like Gary all the time because I lived close to Gary, and I would talk to him. I'd get most of my NCOPD from him after work, drink some beers, and he'd feed me and all that. I'd be walking my dog, and he'd teach me everything. So I really owe a lot to him as far as like guiding me through. Giving me, not telling me what to do, because I'm my own NCO just like he is. He has his own style. So I got people that kind of as a first sergeant coach me were like Gary Plotnick, Steve Burnley, and like Orlando Silva. So, and I'm kind of a mixture of all them. You got like Gary. If Gary's standing on the carpet, he's gonna be like, "Sir, we fucked up." If you got Burnley's like, "Sir, we failed the objective." And me, I'm like, "We failed the fucking objective," and that's me. So that's a combination, everybody.
Oh my gosh! So you got to do more impressions of Burnley, right? Oh my gosh!
Not so much of Burnley. Burnley's kind of he's very even flow. That's why I said he's not like loud, but same thing. I got a lot of info from him as well. He's kind of more I don't say polished, but just he's not as blunt. His bluntness is a little different than Gary. Gary P. So, but he was great. Well, the thing about Burnley was Burnley and I both deployed to Iraq on different MIT teams. So Oh, God rest because I lost one of the guys on my team later outside the army. I lost John Heyman. He got captured over in gosh, now I'm having a brain fart. Um, God, God, Dunkley's on there. Never mind. But anyway, I was supposed to be the master sergeant. I was promotable at that time because I was sitting on promoted list for 2 years, getting deployed. So Burnley was going through training with his team. I'm going through training with my team, and Heyman and I were kind of like having this. He's actually already been a first sergeant, master sergeant. I'm E7 promotable, but I'm kind of, still, I thought I was going to be in that position or whatever. So we were kind of bumping heads a little bit. And I remember Burnley told me this later that Heyman went up to him and was like, "Hey man, what do I do about Cornish? He's kind of rough around." And Burnley's like, "You could either try and tell him what to do, or you can just let him be him." And you let me be me. Burnham's like, I can tell you what I would do, but and I love that guy too. So it was just at the beginning, it was kind of that, power struggle or whatever. You're sitting up there and me being a first class promotable for so long, feeling like I'm already in this position, and then I have an actual pinned master sergeant that's been a first sergeant, kind of trying to take me down a notch. I'm like, it's not happening. It's not the way, that's not how it's doing it. But God, we got along, great after that, just at the beginning initially.
So what was your favorite uniform in the Army?
The BDUs. Yeah, I didn't get
really?
ACUs sucked. But the deserts were kind of cool too. But the BDUs, I didn't get to wear the what is the new ones called, the OSU, whatever the new ones that it's more like the BDU now.
Right.
I got out before they got that. I would like to have worn that. That'd have been nice.
Right.
But,
right.
BDUs, ACUs sucked. So that was garbage.
Dude, the new Army uniforms look awesome.
Yeah,
I love them. I do.
Yeah,
the brown boots.
Yep, those are better. And then, and I always said too, they went back to the pinks or what they call them, the pinks or the browns or whatever, the dress uniform. That's always been the best uniform to me. The greens, I hated the greens. Blues were okay, but the old time browns and all that, those were nice to me. I like those. Even back when the Vietnam, when they were wearing the short sleeve, the B's were the brown, the all brown, all that. I always liked that better too, but I never got to wear that. So.
Oh my gosh. I want to say something right now. Hey, Harris, Martindale, I love you, man. Check it out. Look, he's got a book coming out, AR 670-Harris. He is a hero, I know. So check that out. Make sure you leave an appropriate link in there, buddy. I love you, man. Yay. So Mike, thanks for letting me interrupt you there. I really appreciate it. I love to support our heroes. When other heroes come up on here and have something or project going, it's nice to give them a shout out and support. And speaking of that, Alan Preiser, the author of the Soldier's Creed that you memorized and learned and is also the author of A Philosophy of the Muddy Boots Leadership. If you want a Christian-based leadership that combines the Apostle Paul and a little bit of AR 22-100 leadership, and a little bit of Alan Preiser, the author of the Soldier's Creed. This is a great book. It's available on Amazon. So, check that out. I think, Mike, we're back. We had a little bit of loss there. You went away for a little bit. I don't know what happened.
Well, that's fine. I'm kind of going on a tangent. So.
Oh no, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about what things excite you today. What are you thinking about in your head? In your life right now?
Whitetail and elk.
Right. Oh, right. So you got dreams of stalking. So tell me what's going to happen. Tell me in your head what's going to happen. You're going to cross the stream. You're going to look up the hill. You'll see them, and then what's going to happen?
Oh, well, like I'm going with my buddy right there. So we're like I said, we're doing do it yourself. So we're hiking out there and trying to find them, see where they're at. So. I'd like to think that we could call one in, watch all the videos and all this. I've been practicing my calls, elk calls and, cow.
Oh, I bet that's sexy.
I'm trying, so, but, a lot of people, that know me say I got, one of the reasons I bought, a house with a lot of acreage, and I only got 5 acres, but a big backyard is because I got a range, a bow range back there. I shoot, some 3D targets and all that. So I'm constantly trying to shoot my bow and all that. But anyway, the vision is we're out there and, whenever we rotate, hopefully it's my turn where I'm the shooter and he's a caller. And, we get a big bull coming through there and he comes in at, 40 yards or less and I'm drawn ready and he's pausing and then, I ventilate him and then he doesn't go but 40 yards and then we pack him up. That's the dream right there.
There we go. Perfect.
Well, this is like I said, this is my second one. I went elk hunting in Montana 2 years ago, but it was with an outfitter and it wasn't do it yourself. So I kind of did a lot of stand sitting. I did some, we did some walking and all that, but they weren't really making any noise. So we didn't really know where they were. So I had an opportunity to shoot like 3 cows, but I was looking for antlers, so I didn't pull the trigger on any of them. I could have had a cow, I should have, but I was waiting for a bull. But when they start screaming and I had them coming in pretty close. I never saw one come in close, but they were kind of coming towards me. You can feel it in your chest. I mean, that's how loud they are when they're just, bugling. They're like, I mean, it's just, and I'm standing up and I'm shaking like I'm on the 34-foot tower, like,
yeah,
little rickety stand and all that. And I'm like, God, if he comes in right now, I'm going to be, too scared to move. But that's about it. Yeah.
It's exciting. Like, leading up to a hunt, it's an adrenaline pump that slowly builds and builds
every time, even on doe, because I'm part of a management program, so we hunt a lot of doe to bring down the population because they're so overpopulated in Virginia. And I said if I stop feeling that way, I'm gonna it's gonna be bad, But even every time I see a doe come out and I'm ready to shoot it, I got an opportunity, my heart's pumping and all that, and I'm trying to make sure I'm calm and line it up perfect, make the shot. I still get excited every time, especially if it's a buck. A buck comes in there, I'm just I gotta call my buddy. I got one, So
yeah, oh yeah. We used to Burnley and I. We had radio calls and me and him and Evans and a bunch of us were OCs together and we would, that was when the little radios and the earbuds would come out and we would have our little OC chat, in the deer stands. It was fun.
Yeah.
Were you a good shot? Were you good pulling the trigger, Are you accurate?
Yeah, I was always accurate. Always got excellent. Even with the 9mm, that thing shot like crap. But I always, got expert with that too. So pretty good shot with that. Good shot. With just about everything, like the Mark 19, the 240, the 50 cal. I just, had a knack for it, I guess.
Oh my gosh! All right, so like the bad guys have red dawned us and jumped in behind the lines, and you got to go attack. What weapon are you taking with you?
M4, yeah. M4, yeah. You can't carry 240 is heavy. You gotta have that. You gotta be able to line up. Close quarter combats and all that. If I got a buddy, hey, you're dropping a death blossom. Grab your socks. They're shooting everything. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, like, tell me about those that love you and pray for you at night. Who are those people in your life?
Well, my wife and my kids. Obviously my mom and my siblings back home, my best friends back home, Royce, all those guys have always been proud of me. And, it makes me feel good to have that they, that moment in my life, I mean, they're still proud of me now because I'm doing well after the Army, but during the Army time, they're so very proud of what I was doing, but yeah, definitely my wife and my kids. I didn't meet my wife till I started late. That's another thing. So I didn't marry till after I retired. So I got kids. So I'm pushing. I'm 46. And I got a 5-year-old. So good Lord, I got 11-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I'm gonna be hoping that I can make it long enough. That's why I said that's a good thing about this right here. Because I met them. My wife. I had my kids after I was in the military. So they don't know me. They don't know. First Sergeant Cornish, or they don't know, know me, know any of that. And, I got the museum down here. They see like a lot of stuff that I have, but I was kind of glad about this. So I can at least have some of these stories documented, or at least, have you talk or whatever. So they can kind of see something else. Because I don't talk about, it's not like I say, hey, back when I was in the Army, I used to do this, I might say a couple things every now and then, but you're not getting like the first sergeant hand or the drill sergeant hand. I'm not doing that to my sons or anything like that. Like, but the only thing is I still get up early, but that's about it.
Yeah. So, you bring up a point, that says, what's this about? I want to, share. That is what this is about. Is you opportunity to tell your story. First Sergeant Maggot got sick in 2016. He had a like a tumor that it was like Groundhog Day every day. He didn't remember, didn't have any short-term memory, but he could remember the old days. So I called him and we recorded it, and I called it Heroes I Know. I started a YouTube channel and a Facebook channel, and I went about interviewing Sergeant Major Adams and PFC friend or Sergeant First Class Retired friend that ended up, and Craig Evans and lots of other heroes. And then it took a break for a while, kind of. And then in 2021, January, Sergeant Mason, I found out he was sick, and he was a soldier of mine when I was a first sergeant. And he had a particular cancer. He couldn't talk. He was in hospice when I found out about it. And Joe and I decided to bring back and to continue the Heroes I Know. And so he designed a coin and a T-shirt, and I, started buying stuff to be able to do what we're doing now. And what we're trying to do is to get our stories on recorded. And I wish I had my granddad's story. I wish I had these stories. And so, here is coin box 100 that's gone out, and it's really cool thing to have these memories. And there's Joe. Joe's actually having back surgery today. Today he had back surgery, major back surgery. So please pray for good healing there. And there's my little picture. And right here, you can go sign up right there and go sign up. And if you want to nominate a hero, please nominate a hero. But this is donations only. We just really appreciate it. And it's really all about just, right here, you can donate right there. There's our master rated, our senior rated donors, our basic donors. Thanks for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. We're talking here with First Sergeant Michael Cornish, Superman. What was that your nickname, Superman, or what was your nicknames?
Well, let me see. When I was a drill sergeant, it was Robo Dog, because they said I looked like RoboCop, because I always wore my shades, and I got the real square jaw. I mean, you can't see with my beard, and I have a real square jaw and all that. But, if anything, I was, call myself like, Big Papa Pump, or Big Sexy or something like that. I'd write that on like my book or something like that. But yeah, that's about it. More self-titled names than anything, but. Yeah, Robo Dog was usually what I was called. Drill sergeant buddies. Like, that was a good time too. Drill sergeant was fun. That was fun. AIT, I was AIT drill sergeant, but you got like Macri. He was a drill sergeant there. Chris Lane's one of my best friends. So yeah, Eric Fernandez. Haba was on there. He was a drill sergeant. So all those guys were fun. Doing same thing. Trying to be just funny, even as a drill sergeant. And even though they were kind of I was laid back and all that, I still try to be funny. I'd let them know that I'm kind of out there a little bit. I'd doing a head count. You'd be going while they're doing the rat, counting people and they're sleeping. I'd sit with a flashlight in their face, and then they'd wake up. And I'd just turn the flashlight off and leave. It's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what's your social security number? What makes the grass grow? They're like, what? I was like, can I just leave? So stuff like that was fun.
Yeah. So being a drill sergeant is an interesting kind of thing, right? When you put the hat on and the belt on, you literally create a cartoon character of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that for you.
Let me see. That's what I wanted. So when I left Germany, the sergeant major, made a phone call to the branch and was like, "Hey, he wants to be a drill sergeant. Can you get him in?" And, they said, "Yeah." He's sent us his stuff, his records. He's good to go. So I knew I was going, straight from Germany to Bliss to, be a drill sergeant. So I had to be a candidate. And being a candidate at first was really good because that kind of gets all the kinks out of you a little bit before you go to drill sergeant school. So you're not just like fresh trying to call cadence, which everybody thinks they can call cadence, more than anybody until you're standing out there doing it or whatever. And so, being a drill sergeant, and that was like one of the highlights of my career, something I really enjoyed doing, and that and that even my memory as a drill sergeant when I was a first sergeant, because a lot of guys that were Joes when I was a drill sergeant, were later when I went to Dugway, my reputation kind of preceded me before I even got there. So like, oh man, I was just on corner, he'd throwing people off the bus and for all this and whatever, so that it was funny. So I tried to, and my whole thing with every leadership position that I was in is I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. If you do that, you're good all the way through, because I'm not going up and down. They say, well, you did this for so and so, you didn't know. This is what it is. That's a standard, and that's what we're going by. That's a standard. I didn't make it, but I'm going to enforce it and support it. It doesn't matter if I agree with it or not, but I'm not going to get in any trouble doing that. So that was fun. And of course, you got Philip G. If you're a drill sergeant and Philip G's the commandant, but see, I already knew Sergeant Major Rowland because he was in Hood in a Bravo battery when I was there. So I already, met him. Even my first interaction with him, he said he was going to monkey stomp me when I was a corporal. But he, of course, he remembered me, because we were a Hood, we saw each other all the time, whatever. So yeah, Roland 316 says, what is going to be, and everybody knows that. So the good thing was, as a drill sergeant, this is in my second Oakley, or my first, after my first marriage, I'm already not the skinny kid anymore. I'm, bigger guy, so I can handle this handshake, this time. So because anybody has ever met Sergeant Major Rowland,
I know.
Prepare yourself, prepare yourself, because he's gonna let you know. And of course, he's taller than me. He's all bit of 6'5" and 240 or whatever he was, lean muscle. But you take, as a drill sergeant, when you go, you have to go see him. You don't want him to find you, because his good luck charm is he stomps on your drill sergeant hat. So we always know, don't take your main hat that you wear all the time. Take your extra hat. Give it to him. He's going to stomp on it, step on it the whole time he's talking to you. And he'll pop out, hey, now you're going to, this is good luck. You have good luck there. Good luck. So, but even when I was a candidate, though, I pitched the drill sergeant creed to him in the chow hall as a candidate in front of all the Joes and all. So that's another, me showing him, hey, I'm ready, so.
Do you remember a time in your career where you were disappointed, or you had a specific challenge?
The promotion, that was very frustrating for me. Like I said, I had to wait, 26 months for specialist. I had to wait like 2 years, almost 3 years for sergeant. Sergeant, I got, was promotable after 6 or 8 months or whatever that was at, and had to wait almost 3 years to make staff sergeant. Made staff sergeant, get on the list for sergeant first class, and I waited almost 3 years for that. And then master sergeant, get selected for master sergeant, on the 20 months sitting on the list for that, and then there's the whole, the sergeant major fiasco. So, as my first look at 17 years with, for sergeant major, that's, of course, historically they picked zero got picked, for selection of sergeant major. So like, okay, luck be us. Next year they pick one guy. F my life, so by then I'm kind of salty. I'm like, you do the math, I'm at 18 years and I'm at 19 years. I got to do 6 more years if I want to get my high 3. So that means I got to do 26 years, by the time I get to CAS. I said, no, you should have picked me up when I didn't have a choice. Now I'm at 19 years. You've moved me. I've had 8, 9 different duty stations, been single my whole career. And I'm like, that's it. You didn't pick me when I didn't have a choice. And I have a choice. I'm ready to move on. That's 6 more years, just before, I can get paid for that, that, or you got, it's going to be at least 3 years before you get pinned, So, and then of course, the year I retired, they picked up 60 people or whatever, and some that deserved it. And I mean, I looked at the list and there's some duds on there, I call it like I see it, shouldn't have had stripe, but, it is what it is, but that's the Army's fault, the branch's fault for not picking up guys like me. Now you got this whole, 60 or whatever. Well, I don't know the 60. I'm exaggerating probably, but you picked up just about everybody that was promotable, and then sent them to the academy. So that I
So
do regret that. I want, I wanted to be a sergeant major.
right,
I wanted to take a battalion, but like I said, at 6 years, I'm not even getting into the, maybe a battalion, maybe, it's not like I'm a brigade, just like any other private or sergeant. When you go into a board, what are your expectations? I want to be sergeant major of the Army. Well, I can't be sergeant major of the Army if you never got to promote me. So that was the thing. So
it is interesting, right? You can only do what you can do. You can do all the things. It's like I wrote a thing not long ago about drinking the Kool-Aid, being brainwashed, and if you're brainwashed, then everything's good. But the guy in front of me that jumped out of the airplane that broke his femur, in jump school, I don't know. I guess he wasn't brainwashed as good as I was, I don't know, but I worked out. I guess that worked for me. I don't know.
Did he make any noise when he broke his leg?
Oh yeah, he was screaming, dude. He was in Cadet Creek screaming.
So when so I was part of the test group for the T, on my memory, T12, right? That's a new shoot. So part of the new shoot, and I was close to he's General, is Brigadier Major General Richard Harrison, when he broke his leg. Not a peep. Yeah, no, that's that's the whole kind of toughness right there. Like I broke my leg. Like, well, damn, sir, you're yeah, all right, we'll get somebody for you. But I landed close to him. He's like, hey, broke my leg, need a stretcher, and all that stuff. So he never made a peep. I was like, God damn, he's tough.
Oh,
so, but yeah.
I'll never forget. I'm not gonna say his name, right? But I will never forget one night on Sicily Drop Zone, I landed and I'm, gathering up my stuff, and the next pass flies over and they're coming down, right? And you look up, you make sure no helmet's going to come down and hit you or something, right? Or a weapon. It's, you got to check it out. And it's dark and stuff. And I'm rolling my stuff up. All of a sudden I hear this guy, oh, 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 and I look up and he's like all the way to the ground. Ah, pow! He's making those noise, and he hits the ground like, oh, 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 oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I was like, what in the world is the theatrics over here? So I went over there. It was the doggone other platoon's platoon leader. It was the platoon leader from the other platoon. I was like, sir, are you okay? He's like, I hate freaking jumping out of airplanes. I'm like, all right, cool, dude. Cool.
Like I said, I didn't find out till later in my career about that. And I did. I loved it. I was trying to stay there. And like I said, I was trying to go longer, but it just didn't work out for me that way. But it's funny because, like I said, I was scared of heights, along in my career, and I had the opportunity in AIT to go, but I was like, no, I'm not going airborne. I'm, that ain't me. I can't do that. I can barely go up to Jacob's Ladder, for God's sake. But, as I, went through air assault school, and, same thing, just like in airborne school, I'm more scared of going off the tower than I was out the helicopter. I was more scared of 34-foot tower than I was jumping out of an aircraft. It didn't bother me at all. And as a first sergeant, second pass, I'm number one. I'm sitting leaning on the skin of the aircraft. I'm like, this don't bother me. I'm okay. Gary P's like, don't be no, how you doing? So, but back to that, airborne, you always had, even me, middle of my career, you have a perception of the 82nd and all that. And those guys it's just a higher standard, just if you've never been there, you just consider that a higher standard. And I want to say during my, it wasn't for the NCO of the year. It was a brigade one. Yeah, it was a brigade one because there's guys from, was Stout was a sergeant major in 2007.
Yeah, around about that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause so we're doing the competition for that. So, for the brigade before the NCO, the Fort Bliss NCO of the year. So we did the brigade one, and I remember, again, I'm first place for road march and all that, and Sergeant Major Stout standing out there waiting for his boys. I was like, hey, Sergeant Major, your airborne guys are back there like around the halfway point or something. I'm talking shit to them, because, and it's really more, and I don't really know Sergeant Major. I know of him, and his reputation and all that. But it was kind of the thing where I wanted him to know I was a stud.
Oh
You know,
yeah. Oh yeah.
it was just what you just the way he was. I was like, "Hey, your boys are back there." I smoked there, and that was just me. Me and me. I was like, "Yeah, they're back there somewhere." Yes, you want to go back and get them? And he's like, "No." He's worked out. He's getting a little, but that was me. And I was competing as a sergeant first class. So I'm, sergeant first class. So I'm more comfortable
Yeah.
in my position talking smack. So.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, so he loved it. I guarantee you, Joe Stout loved.
He did. He
Smack.
didn't. He
Oh
didn't.
yeah,
I didn't get any slack. He was, he liked me
Oh
talking
yeah.
smack, being cocky about it. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. He'll puff that chest out just like you will, buddy. Y'all
Yeah.
will be squared up against each other. He's a great guy, man. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh
reputation.
my
Like I
gosh.
said, I knew his reputation. That just, airborne messiah, and others. I was like, so like I said, it was kind of a. He didn't know me, but I wanted him to know me. I wanted him to, remember me. Because I plan on going to, I want to go to Bragg, too. So I was like, I want to know, I'm ready.
So it's neat, it's neat the characters that we were around, right, in the branch, right? Well, who were some of the, you already talked about Philip G, and we've talked about Stout. Who are some other Gary P? We could talk for years about Gary P. Oh my gosh.
I always had. There's always some type of character that I had, and I'm always trying to do, imitate them. Even so in basic training, I tried to imitate one of the, and not that I might imitate. My impressions are great, but I just would always try to do an impression of like one of my drill sergeants when I was in basic training. I did one when I was in PLDC, BNOC, or like even when I was a Joe, and we had like one guy. Sergeant Robert Higgins, he just had this raspy voice, like, "Hey, Cornish, shut the fuck. Yeah, what's wrong with you?" He just had this raspy voice about him. Big dude, big strong dude, and all that, but just, just a character, just got, his voice made him a character. Then he got, just, like Philip G, he's got a presence about him, Gary P, and it just got to go on the list. Like I said, I've been all over, but, every different duty station, had somebody that, gave me whatever, I could try to think of it, but I don't want to be wasting too much time. But that also molded me as far as, leadership. And so the fact that I went through all these different duty stations, I went from Fort Hood to Korea to Fort Stewart to Germany to Bliss to Bragg to deployed to Iraq, Fort Riley, to back to Bragg to Dugway Proving Ground, Utah. So that was my circle right there. So, and everywhere I go, it's, not necessarily, you might have a couple people that know you and all that, but your reputation, you have to live up to whatever reputation you have when you get there, and let them know that it's, you need to validate it. This is why. So you can be a stud if you're at, Fort Bragg or Fort Bliss for 16, 17 years. Yeah, everybody thinks, yeah, he's great. He's great NCO. Is he? Or is he your buddy? And he's great because he's been here since he was a private. Go somewhere else and prove yourself. Go lead somebody that doesn't know who you are and doesn't, then that's leadership.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting to you gotta remake yourself at every duty station in a way. Yeah. But of course we get to carry our little scare me badges with us, right? We get to walk in with a resume on our chest or whatever, Yeah. Yeah. What was it like for you, transitioning out of the Army? Like, I know that when I stopped being first sergeant, it was like I looked like nobody moved out of the way for me like they were supposed to anymore, and nobody knew exactly who I was, when I walked in, and there was nobody that greeted me like, "Hey, first sergeant," and gave me coffee in the morning like I had my guys trained to do.
No, it was easy because I was already mentally prepared for it. But like you said, you're kind of used to all that, and you have a presence. And I don't know about you, but I don't know. It wasn't when I was a sergeant first class. It was definitely when I was a first sergeant. I stopped saluting anybody lower than the captain, at a certain point. And it got to a point where I was just doing it on purpose, waiting for somebody to say something to me. And I found out if I just look like I'm pissed off all the time, nobody ever said anything to me. Like if I'm walking around.
No, you didn't do that, did you?
I swear
That's so funny.
Unless it was like, in a formation or something like that. But if I'm walking around the PX and I'm walking past the lieutenant, I think maybe one time, I was like, "Hey, you forget how to salute first sergeant?" Nope. And I ain't got time to teach you how to do it. So just keep going. Nobody, nobody said it. I said I got the point. I'm like, well, shit, And
Oh, that's funny.
and and that was my big thing too, because I was always about, which is funny because I'm, being a hypocrite when I talk about discipline and all that, then I'm like, I'm not saluting a lieutenant or, world officer. But
You're being a rebel. I'm standing up
well,
against the man.
and my big thing when I was a first sergeant was when I'm walking with my commander. Now, aside from Seth Barrett, who was an eclipse, to me, but everybody else was smaller than me. We're walking together, you know, morning, sir, morning, ma'am. And I would stop and I just stare at them while they're walking by. They'd be like, "Yes, first sergeant." I was like, "Am I fucking invisible? Did you not see me? You don't give me the greeting of the day." Well, you're with the commander. Oh, I'm sorry. Customs and courtesy stops when there's an officer. So that was my big deal. It's like, he's afternoon first sergeant. I was like, oh, there you go. I said, I'm sure you couldn't see me. I'm 6'4", 240. I'm sorry. But that was my big thing when I was walking with
Oh,
my
wow.
commander. So. But transitioning back to transition, now you got me on a roll here. Um, it the hardest part was finding a job. I started early. And one of the good things about going to Dugway was I got my TS, and that's one of the reasons I knew I wanted to come to Virginia area. One, because Royce is here, is my best friend, and I wanted to maintain my clearance in DC area. It's capital all these agencies and all that. So it took me almost a year to get the job that I still have now. So I've been in my job now 7 years. But for that first year, I'm filling out all these job applications. I'm trying everything, and everybody's telling me, "Hey, you got a bachelor's degree, you got a TS, you got 20 years in it, you're gold." No, sir. I don't know if it's just that moment or because I didn't really have anything lined up. It's not like I went from my job as a soldier to the same job, just doing it as a civilian, which would be ideal for anybody. I suggest that highly. If you're transitioning, if you can take over the same job you were doing, while you were in active duty, do that. So then try and move on because it's scary, when you're on terminal leave and then all you're getting is your retirement money, and what are you going to do, you know? And that's where I have to, think like, Royce, because I was staying with Royce. I was single. I said I didn't meet my wife till after I got out, but Royce let me, stay with him for a while, until I can, get on my feet. So, even for like a couple months, I was selling cars just so I could have, some type of income while I was looking for jobs because I was trying to network, give people my resumes because, I'm in Nova, say, hey, what do you do? Oh, I work here and I work there and I got this company. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I send me my LinkedIn, my resume? Yeah. So, um, it took me, I got out in March of 14 and I didn't start my first real job until January of 15. So I was SK Rugland, for a while, and I was starting to feel like, you start feeling like, God, what am I qualified to do? Yeah, I have this vision that I'm going to be, doing well, and just, being very humbled, as far as like filling out all these applications, all these, agencies, and some of them just, it takes that long to pick up, for like a contract or for a GS position. So, but I was lucky. I got, picked up. Somebody saw my boss now, the company that I'm in now, she found me on Clear Jobs, and of course, she's like, hey, we got a position. I'm like, yes, I'll take whatever, just to get my foot in the door. And I've been with her ever since, and it's been great, So,
That's awesome.
but I miss the soldiers, I miss the people, I don't miss the job. Once I was able to turn my phone off at night, that's like the biggest relief. I was like, I don't have to answer my phone. I don't recognize this number. I don't answer that. That's that people don't really, and time. Not having to deal with everyone else's personal problems that are really none of my business, or that I shouldn't have to do for a grown up. You're a grown man, and I got to tell you how to pay your cable bill, or your water bill. What are we doing? Just stuff like that. It's just, why is it your fault? Hey, first sergeant, he needs to pay his, but all right, sergeant major, goddamn, now you have money, but just that type of thing. I don't miss that.
Tell me about your longest day.
My longest day in my life, like, well, probably when my father died. That's my longest day so far. Yeah, because he was my hero. That's the only reason I joined the army and all that. And seeing he so I got out, like I said, 14, 15, I got my first job, and he was sick, with cancer, up, while I was still in the army when we first found out. So he's kind of battling that, and just seeing him, kind of deteriorating from the chemo and all that. And then, he was proud that I got this first job, and that I bought my first house. Because even when I was young, I always rented everything. I didn't buy my own place. I was like, I'm not buying a house, whatever. Um, I I was glad that he was in the hospital. And last time I got to visit him before he passed, he had gotten pneumonia. He was really sick, and he was like on a breathing thing and all that. And I did bring my wife. It was my girlfriend at the time. She did get to see him, even though he was kind of in a bad way, but he did acknowledge her, so he did get to see her. So I'm glad of that. But that the last time I saw him alive was when he was like in the bed and all that. But when I found out, because he was planning on coming to visit me down here and all that with my mom. But when he passed away, yeah, that was bad. That that really that really affected me a lot. And I didn't realize how much it had affected me until even a couple years later. That impacted me in more ways than just him passing. So and I'm seeing I have a therapist. I go see a therapist. I'm not ashamed to say it. So like I said, that had an effect on me, along with some stuff in the army, and my personal life, this, that, whatever, all that stuff. So just kind of unraveling all that, just because you don't know, you don't really know that what's wrong with you until you start talking to other people that kind of have certain same issues and all that. Like, why am I, why am I not clicking or whatever, hard times, like, same thing like my wife, and all that. Just, why am I spending so much time hunting away from the family? Why am I trying to be isolated? There's so much stuff like that. So that's kind of my regret problem that I had to correct. So
tell me a little bit about your father's legacy. He was a first sergeant just like you were.
yeah, he was a sergeant major when he retired. So he was active.
Oh, wow.
So he was active. He volunteered for Vietnam. So he went to Vietnam, came back a couple years, got out, and then got married to my mother, and then has kids, and he went to reserve. So he was reserve 26 years total time. But we had a little bit of overlap while he was reserve and I was still in the army, which was great. Because he did come to my basic training, in uniform and all that. And it's funny because he called ahead so he could, meet the first sergeant. He was a first sergeant at the time, and, wanted to, look around, see what's going on. And, I remember them calling me in the office. I'm like, what's going on? And my basic training first, I was like, your dad's the first sergeant. And I was like, yes, first sergeant. He goes, you didn't tell anybody? He was like, no,
Of course
yeah,
not.
no, of course not. But he's like, do you like it here? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you better tell him this. And I think he said better than ice cream or something like that, which was funny at the time. I was like, yeah, all right. But I remember still doing our closing stuff and all that, and seeing my dad walk around with no, he was a sergeant major. I'm sorry. He was a sergeant major at the time, walking around with the first sergeant and all that. And then when he was sitting with me, your basic training, every time a drill sergeant or somebody else comes by, Eddie's or whatever. But my dad's standing with me, and all my buddies, drill sergeant walk in, they looking around, and they didn't see, my dad's, standing there, sergeant major. So they're like, oh, all right, well, they didn't call that ease for me when I came in there. But that was cool. My dad was great. He definitely, seeing him in a uniform when I was younger just made me so proud, and like something I wanted to be, because he was always very starched and tight, and and all that. So he was and he was 11 Bravo when he was in Vietnam, squad leader, and he had a buddy that he and here's another thing, this the way things work. And my dad, his buddy got shot. I don't know, it was in the head. I'm trying to remember the memory. Got shot in the head. My dad carried him to the helicopter for the medevac and all that. That was his buddy in Vietnam. Was also visiting my dad when he passed away. So he's with so trying to think about it, because it was a big moment. So John Reale is his name, and he was saying to me that because he was a pallbearer with us, because he stayed after obviously my dad passed away. He said just being able to. He goes, your dad carried me when I was basically dead, when I thought I was dead, and he goes, I was able to carry him now, so that meant a lot to him and us. So, but my dad never really talked about Vietnam or a lot of stuff like that. And John was able to tell some stories. He's like, ask me anything or whatever. But it was some of the stories he was talking about. Like he said, my dad got a Brown Star with V device for blowing up a, a bunker with a grenade that was firing on his position. So he low crawled to this bunker that was, in some, Viet Cong. They're shooting at his, platoon while they're doing a patrol. He lobbed a couple grenades up there and blew up the bunker. So he had a little article that I got. I even got that with like his stuff here in my little, my museum. But John Raleigh was telling me stories about when they were in Vietnam. They had like there's a prisoner or something, and John was like, talking to the guy rough. He's like, where's your fucking people? Blah, 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 this is whatever. And the guy, didn't really answer him. He's just speaking back to him in Vietnamese or whatever. And he's like, well, and he's pointing, and they let him go or whatever. With the MPs. And my dad, he said, my dad turned to him and goes, I didn't know he spoke Vietnamese. So which he did, and he's just, he goes, but that's kind of a funny story. He's like, I didn't know you spoke Vietnamese. But yeah.
What's it like to have, buddies, right? You have buddies here that are in the chat that are communicating with us that want to see your story and hear your story. What's it like to know that you have a group of friends that really support you? That's neat, right?
Yeah. And I'm lucky because I do have all these friends that I've had for, like Chris Hewitt. I mean, we came in like around the same time. So, I've known him for over 20 years, since we came in the military together. And same thing with Royce. Royce, I met him in 2001. He's been my best friend ever since too. So you got Chris Lane still, friends. So I got these guys that I, met at different times in my career that just, meant so much to me, and, that are still friends with me today. And still, I can pick up the phone. Like, Gary, I talked to Gary the other day. I'll call him every now and then just to shoot the shit with old Sarge, just because it's fun, talking, with them. But it's really, like I said, one of the blessings from the military that I was able to carry over, because I don't, remember everybody, and I don't have like a lot, I have a lot of, friends, guys that I've served with this or whatever, but my real friends are the, the ones that, that hung through like all these years. I'm still friends with, today, even after, 20 something years and all that.
So. Amen. It really is interesting, the bonds that we make with our soldier buddies. It's a different family than it's family in a way that like it's bred around you in a regular family, but in a military family you get assigned different people and you're at different places, and your family becomes unique to you and nobody else. You and your family become family of other families. It's really amazing concept. It really is. If you had to go back, or you could go back and live a time again, maybe to enjoy it one more time, or maybe to do it better or different, is there anything like that you can think about?
Oh yeah, first thing comes to my head. I wanted Echo Battery.
There you go. We're going back to brag.
Yeah. Even more than making Sergeant Major, I wanted Echo Battery, and I wanted to be a jump master. I was, I wasn't chasing jumps, but I sure as heck was available. Like Gary, Gary was the first sergeant and all that, or even Sergeant Major McCrae, when I was working up at headquarters, he'd let me go. I was like, hey, they got a slot open. Can I go? I can go. So I was getting, I had enough jumps to go, to jump master school, but go to, Dugway, Utah. All right. Which was, kind of a blessing in disguise, because I was able to get my TS, and I loved the hiking and all that. And it was great out there. And I had the best part about Dugway was it was just our unit out there. There was a post commander that wasn't, didn't really have any effect on my rating chain or anything like that. But our command was in Oklahoma, so we were in Dugway. So just me and the commander, and I could pretty much do, be first on how I wanted to. And I didn't have any oversight, right there, across the way, from the Sergeant Major, because they're in Oklahoma, and they trusted me. And I'm probably the only first sergeant that ever got flown TDY for an interview to go be a first sergeant. So and that's another story, when Carr was a Sergeant Major, and they called me at Bragg. Well, here's another thing. I don't like anybody calling me when I'm first sergeant, saying who is this or whatever, So this is how I answer the phone. And I didn't know it, but this is how I answer the phone. answer phone, Bravo battery first sergeant. Who's this? I was like, this is a fucking first sergeant. Who's this? Well, this is Sergeant Major Carr. I'm a regimental Sergeant Major. I'm like, oh shit. Well, hey, Sergeant Major. He's like, well, goddamn. But he was my senior drill sergeant when I was in the IT too. So again, I don't want to do, but he was like, hey, this is regimental Sergeant Major. I was like, well, damn, Carr. But and they told me, hey, we got Dugway. They got a problem out there with drugs. The first sergeant got relieved. The commander got relieved. Either I'm on the top of a short list or I'm the only one available. One of the two. I'd like to think it's because I was, I was important. But they said, yeah, we want to bring you out there to interview with the battery commander, battalion commander, brigade commander, and the post commander, because the post commander was also in charge of the Dugway. I didn't meet with the post commander because he was busy or whatever, but I met with battalion commander, which he realized later on, throughout the thing, how I was. But the first meeting with him, my interview with him was kind of rough because he was like, he had all my NCOERs, won all my NCOERs sitting out there, and he's like, I'm talking to him. He's like, hey, tell me your story or whatever. And I'm talking. He stopped me. And he's like, first sergeant, I'm going to need you to, use a few more sirs in there. And I thought he was fucking with me. And I started laughing. I'm like, what? And I looked over at the sergeant major, and he kind of, gave me a look like, and he's not kidding or whatever. So, I had my Rambo moment where I'm like, hey, you asked me, I didn't ask you, but I'm like, okay, sir, I was in Fort Bragg, sir, the first sergeant, sir. So he goes, stop, I know what you're doing, first sergeant, but you'll get the rhythm of it or whatever. But so that kind of rubbed me the wrong way right away. Yeah. But he showed me a ton of respect after I was in the position for a little bit, but that first meeting, I was kind of like, what are you doing? Then we went to the brigade commander and all that. And I can't remember if it was, God, and I can't remember his name. They're both retired generals now, but I met with them and all that. The same thing. It's like, hey, this is what we expect of you. They got an issue. They need leadership out there. There's a problem. They need discipline. So I'm like, okay. So that was my last duty station. Right before, like I said, once I got that other look. Of course, I'm thinking I'm going to make it. I'm like, hey, if I'm important enough for you to pick me to go to Dugway, I should be on the next list, even if it's one or two people. To me, it's like me or Caldwell. It's like, I'm up there with, up there with him and some other guys. But didn't make it, and I was pissed about that. And after, of course, when I said I'm getting out, everybody and their brother wanted me to go see him so they could try to talk me out of it. But Hawk was, why are you getting out? First sergeant, Hockenberry, and I was like, no, Sergeant Major, I'm ready to move on. And just so that was that story.
That's a name, Hockenberry, man. I love that guy.
Nobody messes
with that guy. Hey, dude, he's gangster from way back, man. He was I first met him in Korea in 1990. Him and his beautiful wife were over there living on the economy, and he invited me to his house right after I got there. I was a young sergeant, had just gotten deployed, and it was great to hang out with him and his wife and family there in Korea. And I talked him and a couple other guys, Kent Maddox, also into going airborne, and that we were all together during those times. Really great people, right?
Yeah.
So what if you were gonna
Maddox, tall, dark hair, real proper Maddox, or no? Or are you talking about the one? I'm sorry, the Maddox you're just talking about. I had the medical issue. That's what you're talking about.
No, Maddox, Command Sergeant Major Maddox just retired. I think he was at White Sands was his last duty station, or I think so. Kent Maddox.
Yeah, Kent Maddox. I don't think it's Kent Maddox. I'm trying to think, but there's a first sergeant Maddox. That's what I think. He's the one that said, if you got to run 2 miles in combat, you're dead. I was like, all right. But he was at OC. He was an OC at NTC. Then he was in Germany, but God, I can't remember his name. But anyway, that's what I thought you were talking about at first. But that's another character. Okay. I remember him being real, stiff, kind of proper. Hey, you got to run 2 miles in combat, you're dead. But,
Oh, wow. So if you were gonna give advice to your future self, you were gonna have a little, in 10 years, I want to give you this advice. Is there something that comes to mind?
10 years from now, or 10 years when I was in the military? Future?
10 years from now. 10 years from now. If you could think, I want to give myself advice that I'm going to look back on in 10 years and say, yeah, that was good advice.
Enjoy your family. Spend time with my family.
Hey, amen. Yay. Watch those kids grow.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me is watching my sons grow and, just It's like a two-edged sword. I'm glad I didn't have a family in the Army because, there's no way it's a whole new respect for people that do have families in the Army. Is like leaving them, having to go somewhere. I miss them when I'm gone for a day or something like that. I can't imagine deploying and you know being away from the field problems and stuff like that. It's hard, because like I said, now I'm like, I'm a couple days away and I'm just miss them like crazy. It's hard. I can't imagine having to do what we were doing. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't have a family while I was in the military for that. But and I started later. But just really trying to be the best husband, dad that I can be, and still trying to support my family and be a good American. So
Amen.
that's what it is. Just take the time and enjoy your family. Provide for your family, but enjoy your family.
As we begin to think about closing out, I would love it if you would call your unit to attention, your pretend unit to attention.
I would, but my baby's asleep right now. I can't.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's upstairs. I don't want to wake him up. So you have to 5 years.
That's great.
It's like, man, I can't believe I chatted this long. You got me chatty Cathy out here at 9:30.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he laid down. I would, but yeah, no, I don't want to. I feel like I'm loud right now. So.
I tell you what, that sounds good. Well, that's a great one. There you go. That's great. And then leave us with a final word.
A final. Oh my goodness! How do you put on the spot? A final word. Be true to yourself. Take. Accept responsibility for your actions and correct them. Don't cover them up. Fix them.
Amen.
If you have an issue, identify it, correct it, and move on. That's my advice for me. Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield. So.
All right. Ain't looking back. That's where we started, an hour and 40 minutes ago, dude. It's been a blast, man. I've had a great time hanging out with you, man.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I was a little afraid there'd be some dead air time or something.
Oh, no, you're great.
I told you I had to write down some notes just in case, but I didn't even get to them.
Is there anything in the notes you want to say we haven't talked about?
No, I think we kind of hit them. We jumped around so much. Like I said, because I wanted to make sure. Like I said, I was like, I didn't want to be like sitting here thinking, what do I talk about? Think of something specific. So I kind of wrote down each duty station to make sure I got that out of the way, stuff like that. But just actually, I will. The people that inspired me, or that I was so. Guys, on my last page. Where's my pages at? I got my pages all jacked up. Here you go. My list of mentors and NCOs that I admired or looked up to. That's what I put down there. That's what I was talking about. So. Kyle Kernan, Big Papa, General Jeffrey Underhill, Jeffrey. So I spelled his name wrong one time, and I won't ever do it again. So, Philip G, Sergeant Major Clem, Gary P, of course. I talked about him. Paris Williams, Harold Lincoln, Stephen Burnley, Orlando Silva, and of course, Royce Adams, Chris Hewitt, and Chris Lane, and that's one people I want to make sure I talk about, and of course, my family, obviously. So. But all those people kind of, in some way, mentored me or guided me throughout my career. And, I took a little something from everybody. So.
Oh, my gosh. First Sergeant Retired Michael Cornish, everybody. I love you, man. It's been a blast, too, right? It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, I don't ever talk about the Army, so that's kind of nice.
Yay. Well, we got it. So we'll get your So as soon as we get the new coins, we'll be sending them your way. We'll have a thumb drive with your slideshow and our interview on it. For your family one day to remember you by and remember these times for. So
yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. Love you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.